welcome to the Once Upon a Sketch podcast. I'm Wilson Williams Jr.
And I'm Norman Grock.
In our podcast series, we'll be presenting interviews, insights, education, and news about the many facets of the children's illustration market, from children's books to character design, storyboarding, toys, and licensed products. We'll use our quest for knowledge to help educate you on your journey to success. We'd like to welcome to the show Terry Hemphill. He is a senior product marketing manager at Adobe. And after hearing our roundtable podcast, Terry approached us with the intent to speak about some of the confusion and concern regarding Creative Cloud that many creative freelancers, institutions, and students are voicing. So without any further ado, we'd like to welcome Terry to the show. Hello, Terry.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me here.
Now, we know you just got back from the HOW conference, Terry, so how was it?
You know, it was great. It was in San Francisco this year, which made I could walk to the conference, which is great instead of having to fly halfway across the country. But you know, it's always wonderful to be back with our designers. That's a special group of designers usually that attends that. You know, a lot of them are in-house designers at companies and such, and you know, a different segment of our customers. But we always enjoy the HOW conference. It's one of our bigger design conferences that we actually exhibit. And, you know, get to catch up with some old friends and meet some new folks. So it's a lot of fun.
Nice. How long have you actually been with Adobe?
Well, I've been at Adobe 8 years. I came aboard right when CS2 was launching, and have, you know, stuck around for the haul. So, in my background, I've been around the graphic arts industry pretty much my whole career. Originally studied landscape architecture, never really practiced it. You know, came into doing multimedia production or multi-image, if you remember, like the multi-slide projector stuff. That was one of the first. I was working at a big animation camera, but that was one of the first things that computerized with dedicated computer systems, you know, generating that type of content. And I went from being a designer and production artist. I actually worked in a medical illustration department once, so I do have some back connections to you guys. I worked at Baylor in Houston for a while, and ended up being more around the technical side of software, and then slowly found my way into product marketing around other software as well. You know, people that were either developing that equipment, or people like Fractal Design, if you guys remember them. They had applications like Painter that's now at Corel, and so a really cool small company that did a lot of great stuff for people that are more on the artistic side of computer graphics, and then moved to Adobe finally, like I said, for 8 years. Well, I'm old, you can tell if I'm saying all that. I was working on computers before there were Macs and PCs, so back in the days of $250,000 turnkey mini computers that you worked in a refrigerated room with gloves with the fingertips cut out, because they had to get chilled. So
I'm gonna have to go look that up. I'm gonna have to go look that up on Wikipedia.
Look up Genographics, Dyconet, Autographics, Management Graphics. All those big dedicated systems were around long before any of the Adobe or anyone had any apps for personal computers.
So we were pleasantly surprised to hear from you and to get the email from you wanting to approach us and give a little bit of interaction from Adobe in regards to the questions and concerns that we had in the last podcast. Was there anything in particular in the interview that made you want to approach us?
Well, I think, and I know there's been a lot of confusion around Creative Cloud, and I know even though we've offered Creative Cloud now for 18 months, I believe, 17 months, because we started it with when we launched CS6. But, people don't listen to every word that Adobe makes, and it's taken a long time, for this to filter out to our broader audience. And I know there's just a lot of confusion. I can hear some of the angst and the pain in the voices. Whether I can, make eliminate that or not, but I just like to at least be as factual as possible, when people have questions, so they can at least work from a point of knowing the facts. I guess that was it.
Well, we've definitely been pooling our listeners, and of course, as members of the freelance and the art community, we've been listening a lot to what people have been saying in regards to Adobe and how they feel about the changes with the Creative Cloud system. And we can can break it down a little bit and say that straight off the bat, the people who have switched to Creative Cloud are very, very, very happy with the service. One of our listeners, Darren Davis, says, he loves the program a lot. I also love the subscription to Adobe products rather than buying them up front. Makes a huge difference. And that seemed to be the general sentiment from a lot of the people. And those people seem to come from a very specific camp. So for those who could afford the program, who use multiple programs, and would normally update, with every single version that Adobe puts out, the Creative Cloud subscription was a steal. They sing its praises to the high heavens. So no one's ever complained about the quality of Adobe products in any way, shape, or form. Most of the people who are users of your programs love them. The problem seems to come up when customers don't fit into that specific bracket. Some of the primary complaints that we've gotten from people is the unaffordable subscription costs for students, schools, or small businesses, being limited to subscribing rather than being able to purchase outright and upgrade when they feel the software and their business warrants it, being made to essentially pay for using multiple programs that they may not necessarily have use for or know how to operate. And if they can no longer afford to subscribe at any point for whatever reason, if it's sickness or whatever the case, or just financial deficit, with the way the economy is, that they lose access to the programs regardless of how much they may have invested or put into the system. And in the process, they worry that they would then lose access to all their digital files, depending on what the backward compatibility is going to be of the Adobe systems. And then there's the complaint that there's no guarantee of upgrades that are worth the financial investment, and no control over how much the price may change as the system goes forward into the future. So first off, those were the primary complaints that we've seen from people when we asked them, when we polled our readers. So first off, we're going to give you the opportunity, if you could, give our listeners an idea who may not be familiar with Creative Cloud, what exactly it is and what it encompasses.
Okay, and I just want to back up on one of your comments. You said that people, don't complain about Adobe software. Well, yes, they do. Even our most loyal customers complain loudly and frequently. And but if people didn't care about the software, they wouldn't bother to complain.
Exactly.
So that's a good thing. And we actually do it. Encourage those complaints, and people do listen, even though you may not think that. But back to just a quick snapshot of what Creative Cloud is. It's a membership, and it comes in different levels, which I'll speak about. But just in a general way, the membership gives you access to all of our creative tools. It gives you access to certain tools and services that are only available in the cloud, such as the Edge tools and services, which are fairly new. Typekit, right now it's just type for the web, but I'll speak in a moment about some initial things that are coming from Typekit. You get some other services like Adobe Muse. That's a fairly new product. It's been released a little over a year now, that lets you design standards-based websites without writing code. And you can publish them as part of your Creative Cloud membership. You can host them on Adobe. The back end is Business Catalyst, which is lets you actually manage and derive some metrics and such around those websites, and as well as you get membership to Behance, which is a recent acquisition by Adobe, and as part of Behance is generally free if you guys are familiar with Behance. It's an online creative community. The Behance Pro site is included as part of the membership as well. And there also was part of that are the Adobe Touch apps, which we just released updates on, things like Adobe Ideas. There's a new cooler app for the iPhones and things like that. Just wanted to say that there are different membership levels. And what I'm talking about, where you have access to all the tools and all the services, is part of either a full individual membership or a team or enterprise membership. We also have single app memberships. Maybe you only use Photoshop, so there is the ability to get some of the other Creative Cloud services, things like the online storage. You get 20 gigabytes of file storage. There's file sharing. You still get the Behance and that type of thing, but only subscribe at a lower price for one application. And there's also a free membership, so you get really basic, like 2 gigabytes of storage. But you can. That's essentially now how people trial our products. We've always offered 30-day trials. So now, if you don't have those, you can go in and sign in to Creative Cloud. It's just an Adobe ID. If you've done trials in the past, or if you purchased software and registered, so you probably have an Adobe ID, but you just have that, and you can trial everything, and you get a small amount of storage, and just the very basic functionality there.
So what do you think? So you've been talking about this for a while to a lot of people, I'm sure. What's the biggest misconception that you've run into out there?
Oh, well, there's a number of them. I think, and I think some are starting to get cleared up. I think the first one was when we call this Creative Cloud, people are thinking, I'm going to be running my applications in a web browser. And, that's not the case. The applications are actually downloaded and installed on your desktop, just like they are today. It's a little bit slicker way of doing it. Something that made me really happy when I was first working in and installing a bunch of apps was there is a Creative Cloud desktop app which kind of tracks everything that's going on, whether you're sharing files, downloading stuff, but all the applications are listed there. You can just click on them, the ones you want to install, and walk away. You don't have to be there to enter in. It'll just do it all in the background for you. But the primary one is, these are installed on your desktop. And the second one, I think, is that you always have to be connected to the intranet. And there was some misconception about that we always had to be connected to the internet because there are Creative Cloud apps that was always pinging the internet. You do have to be online when you install and license your software. And if you have, say, an annual membership, you are asked to connect to the web to validate your software licenses every 30 days. But we've heard a lot of complaints about this because people travel, people won't have access. But now you can go up to 99 days, even if you're offline, so without having to worry about your apps or something shutting down, saying I'm not licensed. Want me to continue more about some potential myths or misconceptions?
You can maybe just give us one more, and then we can move on.
Okay. I think the one that, and I think it's one of the questions you shared with me, is like, if you leave Creative Cloud, so you end your membership, you won't be able to access the files that you've created or that you've stored in Creative Cloud. And, one, you don't have to store files up in Creative Cloud. It's there if you'd like to. It gives you the ability to have them at hand all the time. But let's say you have stored them up there, and you stop your Creative Cloud membership. So you would drop down to a free membership. And that free membership only allows 2 gigabytes of storage. So if you've got more files up there than that, you won't be able to do any syncing with anything, and you'll be given 90 days to pull those files down and store them somewhere else. If they're until you get down below that 2 gigabytes of storage.
Right. That's good to hear, because that was actually one of my questions. Was like, where do my files immediately go away, or are they sort of in holding until you pick the service back up? So, thank you for answering that.
Sure, and it is there is that qualification around the size of the files and stuff. I think most people would understand that, but you do have a 90 days grace period there, so it's not all going to be taken away. So why don't you guys? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Part of the other concern about the backwards compatibility was also that as Creative Cloud advances and moves forward and upgrades, that the people who are using perpetual licenses, which is the CS2 models to the CS6 models, the ones that people could buy outright and have, on their desktops and use without being part of the subscription model. People worry that at some point the versions that are in Creative Cloud could advance to the point that if they ever stop Creative Cloud, that they wouldn't be able to open those files in CS2 through CS6, and therefore wouldn't be able to open any of their older files.
Well, there's always been the issue if you're on CS2 and you're working with someone who's on CS6 on a perpetual version, that they are going to have to save if you're on CS6, you have to hand it off to someone who's on CS2. They have to save the file out in a CS2 format. And some of the apps work better than others at saving backwards. And, it's just because of the nature of what's going on inside, the structure of the file and such for the applications. Illustrator and Photoshop tend to be pretty good about that. What happens is, like, if I have CS6 stuff, and there might be certain features in CS6, they're not supported in CS2. When you save backwards, we do our best to save the appearance. You may not be able, like, for instance, we have variable width strokes, or you have gradients and strokes in Illustrator CS6. If you go back to CS2, those aren't supported there, but the gradients and strokes would be changed to actually a gradient mesh on a line, on an outlined path. And so you'd have the appearance of what you would have. The appearance to be maintained would be harder to edit. But that's always kind of been the case. But more to your point is, if you're in Creative Cloud and you end your membership, what happens? How am I ever going to be able to open those files? Well, if you have CS6 or a perpetual one, we are going to we're going to maintain the ability to support to CS6 in our at least there's a list of applications I have now, includes like Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, After Effects, Flash Professional. Those are the ones that have stepped up, and we will always, no matter how far we keep moving forward with Creative Cloud, we'll maintain this ability to save to CS6 format. I mean, most of them save to other formats as well. I believe, like for Illustrator, I think you can go back to Illustrator 9. We have dropped some of the older formats. But we are going to maintain that compatibility. The caveat there being, you would have to have saved those back to that file format, right? Much in the same way you would operate today if you were, say, if you're working CS6 and somehow that was going to be taken away from you. If you had CS5, if you save those things back to a CS5 format, you'd be able to open them. So you'd have to have a bit of thought in that and save your files back to a CS6 format. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned that, yes, it makes sense. You mentioned that that there would still be support for CS6 files, but it's also been mentioned that there isn't going to be ongoing Adobe support for CS6 and back. Could you explain the difference between the support? We understand that, going forward, from what you're saying, Creative Cloud will support be backwards compatible to CS6. But when you say that Adobe is no longer going to support CS6 and back, what exactly does that mean for the people who want to stay with the perpetual license for those programs?
Well, there is always a certain amount of time that we offer support for the products. The one thing that we're not going to do is continue to develop those CS6 applications for new operating systems and hardware platforms, because sometimes those things change over time, and they're usually fairly slow now. It's not, I guess Mac's probably the fastest to come out with, OS updates. So that would be the one caveat there, is that there is still, there's a certain amount of support there, but we're not going to continue to develop them for new operating systems and hardware platforms as those are released.
Why did Adobe go to just a subscription model? What was the thought process behind that?
Well, there were a number of things. It started, when we were looking at, how, just how the world's changing around, and it's certain, faster in some areas than others, like the web is I guess, the most obvious place, where the standards and things just are changing so rapidly. We started trying to speed up our release cycle of our products. It was around 18 months to 2 years. Then we got it down to a year with these interim releases, just to keep up with what was happening in that world. And it was just finding it, with this model, there's the real background behind it, and it's kind of a complex, way to describe it. But there's accounting rules and regulations. Not all of them are Sarbanes-Oxley. They've been around for a while. But when you sell a perpetual product, there are certain things that, from a business standpoint, you cannot. When someone's bought and paid for a piece of software, sort of underneath that perpetual license, you can send bug updates. But if you are trying to deliver updates that provide higher, real functional value, there's some accounting issues that always prevented us. It was frustrating on the team's part because it got locked us into this cycle of 18 months, and then you get into this whole marketing thing of always delivering something wow. So it's a big story because we were in a model to get people to upgrade. Whereas there's a lot of features that are really usable, everyday features that not the big glamorous features that are wow, that someone doesn't use on a daily basis. So the teams would often be frustrated with not being able to get out, those things that they need, their customers have been asking for, because they got locked into this cycle and because of limitations in customer support and QE to deliver a product in those cycles. It was really hard. When you have a subscription-based or membership-based model, you can deliver updates at any time. You're not restricted by accounting, principles and regulations about, when you can do it. So we saw it as a better way to deliver ongoing value to our customers, where we could get out smaller updates along with the bigger ones, things that maybe or something changes and we need to get something out really quickly. That gives us the ability to do that, and it's a big internal change, as well as the way the teams develop. Whereas before they may have been working on one big build that goes out like in a pre-release and let people test it, and now we have these branched builds that go out along feature development and come back into a main line. So, but really, it was the ongoing innovation that was the primary driver of this, and to get out of this need to constantly just churn out these updates that potentially may not be delivering what our customers want. Okay. Does that make sense, or does that sound like a sit around a question? The accounting thing is really one of those things I hate to dig into. I believe we have it up on one of our blogs where someone actually went into that detail, and it's just, I don't know, those things are mind-boggling, but we always ran into that as product teams about the things we could and could not do to dance around those things, and legal prevented it. So, this has really freed them up in a way that makes the teams very happy.
So what you're saying is there's going to be a lot more sort of micro updates as opposed to just one big release, or are you guys going to still have big releases every once in a while?
Well, we're actually, that's still being determined. The directions, right now are like to have the teams do what they feel is they need to do for their customers. The teams seem to, the individual product teams know their customers better. There's certain things that will be delivered as soon as they're done. For instance, InDesign for the CC version, went under, a complete rebuild of the app, making it 64-bit, decarbonizing it on the Mac. It's such a huge task. So some of the smaller things that we wanted to have for InDesign as part of this initial CC release, they couldn't get in on the date that we were shipping on the 17th of June. So they'll be coming out probably in August with some releases that will bring in some additional things like the sync settings, some Creative Cloud things that they just couldn't deliver, like the ability to sync settings and the direct share to Behance from within the application. But Photoshop's got some things planned as well that are going to deliver immediately after. That being said, we also are looking at trying to, from a marketing standpoint, it's still hard for us to manage all this, just the communication, whether it's internal to our own sales and channel people or external to our customers. And there will be probably some groupings of features that will be bigger releases, but they'll be coming out faster. Probably every 3 months you'll probably see applications releasing, and that's kind of been our model since we started this Creative Cloud at CS6. The teams were just kind of getting in the right rhythm of what's going on, but there'll be a mix, is what I'm saying, of smaller things as well as bigger releases that would have like 3 or 4 of the major design products, let's say, would release together at the same time, so there'd be an easier way to communicate it out to the customer.
Will those bigger changes be labeled in a way, and so that people will? Let me see. In much the same way that you were doing, CS2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is there going to be Creative Cloud 1, 2, 3, so that people will have a way of categorizing and knowing when they want to upgrade and when they don't want to?
Right now, we're not going to be versioning the CC. The apps themselves will be versioned. Illustrator right now is version 17. So there'll be a download center on. Like if you're a member of Creative Cloud, there's a download center there where you can go in and either get the latest stuff. You can even get CS6 stuff to download as well as part of Creative Cloud. You don't even if you need to be on CS6 and that's all you want for that one particular app, you can get it. But we'll be actually including those updates in the download center by tab, so you could download an older version or you can see what's in it. There's no force upgrade. You'll be notified that there's an update available into the Creative Cloud desktop app, or if you go to the website for Creative Cloud, or if you log into your website, and it will tell you there's an update available. You can go to the download center and see what the details are. It may be something just minor. They're going to try and keep it really simple and only show what the new stuff is on those updates.
So it'll be so once you get to the point that you do decide you want to upgrade, you will be getting everything that's been added to the system up to that point. You won't be able to go through and say, okay, I want this feature added, but I don't want these other features added, or whatever the case may be.
Well, it depends if let's say if it's Illustrator version 17.5, 17.7, I don't know, let's just say that there's 17.0. All 3 of those may be available for you on the download center. So if you went there and you saw something in this very latest thing that you didn't want, you could get the previous version. I mean, I think most people want the newest, unless it is going to break a workflow or there's some potential, software, hardware incompatibility. People use plugins. It takes the plugin vendors a while to catch up. Things like that.
On my Mac, I have like Notification Center, right? Is it gonna pull up and pop up like a little notification when there's an update with? Will it tie in with the Mac OS, or is it just going to be an Adobe separate pop-up window?
It's Adobe separate window. It's the Adobe, that Creative Cloud app that I keep describing, that desktop app, is sort of your control for everything Creative Cloud. Whether at home, it'll let you know who's following you. Let's say on your artwork on Behance. It'll show you what updates have happened. It's like a timeline of what's happened there. If you go into the apps pane of it, it shows you what apps you have installed, and it'll show you if they're up to date, and it'll give you the new apps if you want to install them, and it'll list some updates that are available. Same thing with files, fonts, and Behance. There's tabs for all those, and it can actually just show you what your activity has been around that. But the app will be notification will be in there. There's some thinking, in the Creative Cloud website, there would be notification there as well, that there's an update available for you. Your primary one would be your desktop, your Creative Cloud desktop app, because it would give you that notification if there's something available if you'd like to update.
Can you describe how Adobe came up with the pricing schemes?
Well, I don't really have a ton of insight into that. I know we did lots and lots of research around that, looking at how often people upgrade, because The majority of our customers don't upgrade every release. Most of the time it's too fast for them to manage that, to roll it out. When it was a perpetual model. So, people usually would skip one or sometimes even two releases, depending on just the nature of their business. And so we looked at what those costs were, what the costs were for someone who's brand new as well to Adobe. The people who were on an upgrade path, had a easier step up when upgrades came out. The people who were new had a pretty significant leap into what was the Creative Suite world back then. Master Collection was $2,600 if I were just starting out and I wanted to get Master Collection. So those are some of the considerations given. And again, there's just a lot of research around what would be the sweet spot for people to be affordable for them. I know everybody's finding it unaffordable, but at least a lot of complaints from everybody's finding that. But if you look at if your business is doing creative work, and you're looking at something that do you buy Starbucks coffee every day? It's kind of that. What is the model that would work for people in terms of that?
Here's what I would imagine people's part of the problem is with the pricing situation. Like you were saying, like the majority of the customers don't upgrade every single time there's an update put out. But it seems like the pricing model is based on someone upgrading every single time. That's a part of the constituent of the people that we poll who love the system and find it a great switchover are the people who upgrade every single time, and then that cost makes sense to them. It works for them and their business because that's something that they've integrated into their cost of operations. But like you were saying, the majority of people that use Adobe on a regular basis don't do that. They only really upgrade when they finally either it gets to the point that they need to upgrade to be able to be compatible with the clients that they're working with, or it's when it gets to the point that Adobe has actually added something specific that will enhance them and their business and what it is that they use the programs for. So switching to the subscription model means that they would, in essence, whether they take the upgrades or not, be paying for a lot of materials that could or could not be beneficial to them in any way, shape, or form. So therefore, that pricing is large for a smaller customer that can't necessarily afford to have a new monthly bill on top of all the other monthly bills that they have. They'd much rather have the freedom to be able to choose when and how they want to upgrade those programs and not be put into a position where they feel like they don't really have a choice. Even though you are setting up an a la carte system where they can choose whether they want to take the upgrade or not, in essence, your pricing structure is set up that they're still paying for it is part of the problem.
Well, and I understand that, and we're looking at building more and more value into Creative Cloud itself, outside of just that, and hopefully even for illustrators, photographers in a similar way. And in all honesty, they say, well, I don't want to use Photoshop. Why do I need this? And maybe Photoshop hasn't. They probably do upgrade every year because Photoshop tends to release a lot of new features for photographers that probably very useful for them. And we are looking at different things for these people. We do have a single app membership. We also are going to continue to offer the CS6 as perpetual software. We're not stopping selling that, so people can still buy that. It won't be in a box. You'll still download it. It'll be a download because we did stop selling box software a while back. But it's still not many people bought a box anyway. But that's still available if you just want that. Now, granted, at some point you're probably going to have to look forward and say, well, I don't want to be on CS6 anymore. But I mean, think about CS2. I said I came to Adobe back then. I hear people, I know in your podcasts are still on CS2. That's 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's me.
So so if you think about, you probably 8 years from now, things could be really different in terms of what you want. And hopefully, it's up. The onus is on Adobe to prove the value of Creative Cloud, and we're definitely taking that seriously in terms of trying to make it's a different world we live in now, where people are constantly sharing things, working collaboratively, just needing to do different things as well, as part of just surviving in your business. And we're hoping to be able to deliver that and show the value of that as well. So that really is the onus is on us to deliver that to our customers. And at some point, like I said, we have people on the product teams who really seriously care about our customers, and so do our people in management. I mean, we realize this is a very serious business for Adobe, and that we're going to try and we'll promise to deliver to our customers, and not. At some point we are a business, and we make things around there are business decisions that are made, but the customer is really what drives that. So we have to make sure our customers are getting the satisfaction and the value out of what we're delivering to them.
Understood. I think it's reasonable for us to understand that from a business point of view, why Adobe would be going in the direction that it's going. You're moving in the direction of what the market is entailing, and you're not the only. Adobe is in no way, shape, or form the only company that is switching to some of these models as far as subscriptions are concerned. But it's a hard transition for, like you were saying, the majority of your customers. So I think it's just a matter of I imagine a lot of the customers are just hoping to see more options, more ways to ease them into it, or more ways to make it accommodating for them and their business, because a lot of us rely on your products to some degree to get our work done. So for many of them, we put in a position where their livelihood is potentially, being threatened. Potentially, how am I going to make a living if I can't afford to rent the software on a month-to-month basis? For a lot of people, that just throws their world into a headspin. And I'm sure, and I know that you've gotten a lot of that from people, from the customer base of Adobe. So I don't know if there's any contentions or anything. Because I know, like you're saying, as we've been going through this changeover to Creative Cloud, you've been continuing to adopt and change and try to react to things that customers are saying. It's just a matter of letting people know what those changes are. And I guess a lot of people are wondering, to what extent are those things potentially going to be answered? Do you think that there's a possibility of there being a change in the future of the pricing structure that's going to answer some of those concerns? Or
well, I think so. One of the biggest concerns, it would be for me is the concern. Okay, I'm a freelancer, and something happens to me. Maybe it's a health issue, and I'm out of work. I've been paying for this, or maybe I've lost a job, but I still need to be able to work. So we're looking at things that could guarantee these people would have access to some functionality. We haven't rolled out plans, but that we have heard that loud and clear that's a real pain point. And also, and I'm not trying to group your illustration audience, because I know you tend to use a variety of products, but with photographers. But say the photographers have been pretty vocal about, I only use Photoshop. And so we have the single app membership, and it's pretty, depending upon what offers we have. It's not that expensive per month, but they're still concerned about that, and I know we're investigating those types of issues around the people who use more than 2 or 3. If they use 2 or 3 apps, they're usually pretty excited about the Creative Cloud, because it is it seems very palatable to them, from a cost perspective, especially when they factor in some of the other things that are part of Creative Cloud that they're going to be able to access that they may have been excited about. So we are listening to these issues, and I know it is painful, and it's kind of tossing people into a scary world, where they don't feel like they have that that box and that CD or DVD to go back to. But I think we are coming out with some things to address those concerns.
One of the questions I had with that is, you had brought up like the medical, there might be some sort of medical concern or something happens to you, right? And you've signed that 1-year contract, but halfway through you're like, oh, I just can't afford this anymore, right? There's so many other things going on in my life. What is the penalty for early termination?
The penalty for early termination is you're responsible for the 50% of the remaining. If it's an annual subscription and say you cancel it after 4 or 5 months, whatever the amount would have been for the rest, you're responsible for 50% of that.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned that, I didn't know that. So you mentioned that there are applications of what is included in Creative Cloud, but there's been complaints that there are some things that aren't, some programs that aren't included in Creative Cloud, and it actually costs you additional money to use them. What programs are those that aren't necessarily included in the full version of Creative Cloud, not the lower tier levels of your program?
I don't know.
Oh.
Can you name one? All of our creative apps are part of Creative Cloud.
There was one, I think, that you have to pay, I think it's like around $400 for, and then specifically, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Do you remember, Norm?
Well, at first, I think we tried to find this yesterday, and someone had brought it up to us, and we weren't sure. But I thought it was going to be Lightroom, right? I'm pretty sure that's an Adobe product.
Yeah, Lightroom is part of Creative Cloud.
I saw, and that's the one that I guessed, and it said like now part of Creative Cloud right on the banner of their page. So I wasn't sure which one they were talking about.
Yeah, there was definitely some rumors out there that Creative, because that was part of the appeal, like you were saying. That's part of the appeal of Creative Cloud, is that all of the programs that fall under the Adobe umbrella are included within the subscription. And some people were complaining that that's not true, that it doesn't include everything that falls under the Adobe umbrella. So we were wondering, what doesn't?
I can't think of anything that doesn't. I mean, not on the creative side. I believe that everything, as far as I'm aware, I mean, I'd be happy for someone to point out something that's not available.
Cool.
I'm looking at the list right now, just trying to see if anything jumps out to me. But no, I haven't heard that before. I know there was, sometimes it's confusing because Lightroom is still offered by itself. And maybe that was part of the confusion, or it may have been something that wasn't rolled into it at the time. But I used to manage Master Collection. I was the marketing manager for that. It was one of the complaints we always received that Lightroom wasn't part of that. So I know when the Creative Cloud was coming around, we definitely wanted to make sure that Lightroom was included.
Maybe that's where that misconception came from.
It could be, yeah, because there were a couple of things that weren't included. Muse, for instance, wasn't part of Master Collection. You had to buy; it was only available through subscription. So it, again, Creative Cloud kind of is a bigger umbrella there for the creative tools and services.
I had a question that popped into my head yesterday, and it was about multi-platform. So let's say I have a Mac and I'm also running a PC. Do I just need to download that app, the Creative Cloud app, to both, and then use my login, and I can use them on either computer, or there's no longer like I'm a Mac, I'm a PC person with Adobe software?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, our Creative Cloud lets you, have put your membership. The apps could be on 2 machines. You can use them simultaneously with the Mac or PC, and the ones that they have support for things like sync settings and all that. You could have you get all your workspace set up just like you like with the brushes, everything. Say in Illustrator or Photoshop, you sync those settings up. If you get to another machine or you're installing on a new machine, you can just download it, whether it's Windows or Mac, and then you can sync your settings and have the same setup that you like to, your workspaces and everything like you like.
Nice.
So yes,
that's cool. Good. I was thinking of I'm a Mac guy, and I was looking at the new Windows tablets with the Wacom pressure sensitivity.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, it'd be awesome to have that set up in both places, and it sounds like that would be great for someone that's running multi-platform. You wouldn't have to have 2 different licenses. That's cool.
Right, and also languages as well. Say you may want to have a different language version of an app. Some people have that need. They work in English and French, let's say, and they just want to, or it'd probably be more similar to working in languages that require different text controls for this Middle Eastern languages or something, and you can do that as well.
I think that sounds very neat. Now, there's definitely situations with different countries that don't have access to download. We saw some of that too. Or that the pricing model is very different depending on the country that you're in, whether it's higher in comparison to American rates. It seems like the American rates are the cheapest. So, yay America. But there seems to be like some issue in different countries of being able to access the Creative Cloud, which was part of the reason that some of them were wondering, could they still have access to hard copies and things of that nature? Is that something that's anything that Adobe can deal with directly, or is that something that's beyond your control?
Well, some of it is actually just getting the stuff rolled out to the other countries. They're trying. Our goal is to make it as widely available as possible. Just like our perpetual software is, so it's typically language versions. I think right now we have around 19 or 20 languages that are out there, and we're looking at getting those others rolled out as soon as possible. And there is some, because of taxes and such, there is a difference, just like there was in our perpetual products. I know even sometimes they could be significant, but we've tried to reduce that as much as possible with Creative Cloud.
What suggestions would you give for, I remember when I graduated from, granted this was a long time ago, Terry, so don't laugh at me. It was a long time ago when I graduated.
I could beat you on that.
Well, I know when I graduated from college and I got that first job within my industry, being an illustrator, it was paying those less than barely livable wages. I know it was very hard for me at that point in time in my career to not only buy my own computer to be able to use at home, but also to be able to afford to buy the Adobe software and things of that nature. Seeing as how a lot of all the new artists that are coming out of college and whatnot, and they're also probably in the same situation with their finances. Is there anything that you would suggest for them as far as being able to afford a monthly fee? I know you said there's a free subscription plan at the bottom, and then there's the next rung up with the one application. Are there any plans in the future for varied subscription models where, we know you have a student rate, and we know that you have, a teacher rate and a business model and then the regular model. Is there anything that could potentially come in there in a different level, or a long-term discount? Say if somebody wants to pay for a whole year of subscription, that they'll get it at a discounted rate from what they would get if they were paying on a month-to-month basis? Or are there any plans for things like that in the future that will offer further incentives?
Well, at first, I guess I always tell students this. A lot of them don't understand that the student edition, this is in the perpetual world, but it's, I always say grab that student discount before you leave school, because that is one of the best deals you'll ever get. And it still would be, if the student can't afford it, would be to grab the student discount. And seriously, the education world and for the students is super important to us. Those are our future customers, right? So we definitely want to make sure that they, what we're offering to them is something they're going to want to use and can't afford to use when they're new. A new design which is coming out in the world, because it's tough out there for everyone. There has been a lot of concerns around around the student-teacher pricing, and I know there's a lot of discussions about investigating that a bit more in terms of coming up with like a varied plan, you've got a single app plan. You've got a full individual, you get everything, you're having something in between there. So you pick three applications or four.
Yeah.
We haven't really gone there yet. I would say, I guess anything's a possibility, and we have, hopefully have the flexibility in this model where something like that could be managed. You can imagine the back-end complexity that would entail, and making that possible. But there's nothing that's been presented to me for that. I mean, some of the things that we do are offering special offers for existing customers that, instead of, say, a single app being, $20 a month for $19.99, it's $10 a month for the first year. We've had some other things like that. We've started locking in these prices for more than a year. I know we just did for the Creative Cloud for Teams. There's a special offer, and that we guaranteed that instead of just for your first year, it'll be guaranteed for 2 years that monthly price will be locked in. So, we are responding to those concerns around that. But I think it's one of those things that we need to understand. The issues around for these freelancers coming into the workplace out of school and new designers, and make sure they can afford it. But right now we don't have plans, to my knowledge. Certainly nothing's been communicated to me. We're looking at a kind of create your own suite pricing structure, but the possibility is there. But there's nothing there now. I would say now you'd probably be better served by looking at what offers, special offers do we have for you. If you're an existing customer or an existing CS6 customer, and see if one of those will work for you.
Yeah, because it seems like that's the way that the discounts are structured. They're structured based on what software you already have at this point in your possession. If you don't have anything, you kind of come in at the highest price point. If you have CS6 to CS5, I believe, CS5 to CS6, then there's another level of pricing that you come in at. And then before that, CS2 to CS4 is a different level of pricing that you can come at in for as far as the discount is concerned. And so, but that was the limit of the subscription cost differences was within those brackets. If you have the programs already versus if you don't have anything at all.
Right, and it's a similar metaphor to how we there are upgrades, for perpetual. There would be a lower cost for people who stayed more current, and a higher cost for people who stayed back. And then at some point, usually three releases back, we usually drop the upgrade.
Right.
You'd have to go in and buy the full price software.
I even think that there would be a good reaction to having, like in most situations, when you're dealing with a subscription model where you can pay month to month to month to month, if you go ahead and at the beginning of the year make that big jump and go all in and pay for the whole year at one time, in many instances, a subscription model will give you a discount to pay all at one time versus paying on a month-to-month basis to give you an incentive to kind of come in and pay for it all, pay for every full year at one time.
Ryan, actually, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I need to jump over you. But that actually is, when you look at the flea type around the offers, you're typically saving because you're committing to an annual plan. You're just billed monthly for it.
And there is, you can actually come in, even if you do the monthly plan at this point, there are outlets where you can go and pay for the whole year up front rather than having to pay, even though you have signed up with a yearly plan, having to pay month to month to month to month. Signing up for a yearly plan just kind of locks you into a price structure, correct? For what your price is going to be month to month.
Yeah, it's a lower price.
Right.
If you have an annual commitment, you do get a lower price versus a true 30-day that you are updating just a single monthly per monthly subscription or membership.
So, Terry, in our illustration industry, there's a lot of people that like to put out books and comics. A lot of artists love to put out those types of things. And I saw in InDesign, one of the features that you get with Creative Cloud is like your InDesign files to applicate to an app. More to the digital side of publishing. How does that work? I really don't know a whole lot about that.
Okay, it's what you're mentioning there is called DPS, or Digital Publishing Single Edition. As you know, Adobe launched the Digital Publishing Suite. Some time ago, it was like you'd see the Wired magazines, the Martha Stewart's, all those going to the iPad, and this very interactive experience, really kind of a different way of presenting that kind of content that would be typically done in a print magazine, but done in a more interactive way. And those were, really delivered for an enterprise, like the Condé Nast, or a high-end publisher, or a very large organization, because a lot of people are also using this to deliver sales information such out to their sales teams around the world that can be pushed to their iPads, and then things change and all that. So what you have with the single publishing version of that is a version that lets you create single edition iPad apps, an unlimited number, and that means you're using your InDesign tools with an overlay of the DPS features on top of it. But you are working in InDesign to lay it out, and there's things within InDesign, whether it's reflow or these various animation capabilities that connect with the DPS tools to allow you to create these. I just want to be clear around what the differences are in the digital publishing suite. You've got the enterprise and professional ones that are not part of Creative Cloud, that are really designed with very high publishing fees, or people who are delivering monthly magazines. Your big publishers that are out there. You've got some other versions that are meant for big corporations, but for your independent designers who want to be able to, maybe your customer wants an app done, or you'd like to be able to push out, like you said, something that's not constantly updated. I think that would be one of the key things.
Interesting.
That's why we're saying it's not where you can publish a magazine, but you can publish an app. And partly because we don't control, this all goes through the Apple Store, right? So Apple has to approve these, and they are very picky about what is their thing, a single app versus a publication. So with that caveat in mind, you have to think about what you're doing. You wouldn't do like a monthly magazine and think Apple's going to let you because you can't update it once it's done. You have to do another application. So, but if it's something that has lasting value with that ongoing application, single edition's a great way to go. There's also options out of InDesign, in EPUB format, which can go out and also can be, read, in any type of, reader like a Kindle or on an iPad. And those are some good options for publishing too. It doesn't, that's more like for publishing a book or something. So that might be an option if you're looking at a more book type publishing with some limited animation. But if you want like a full app experience, then you could go to the DPS single edition. So
what you're saying is, with your app, make sure you're good and ready before you put it out there.
Yeah, because it isn't, and it's some of the restrictions that we are just faced just with pushing these things out. Because you can imagine if everybody's just creating and then updating and such without the right tools, it gets even more confusing. But for instance, people have done cookbooks or they've done how-to guides for something, or they've done an app just for say a travel app for a particular city. And again, those things might need to be updated, but not like a magazine, where you're updating it every month. Gotcha. So it might be, maybe in a year you'd want to push out a brand new version, but it wouldn't be something that you're looking at a continuous update.
I think I saw that as a feature in CS6 at first, and I got really excited about it. And then I read on, and I think in CS6 you had to pay. There was a certain fee to publish each app. And then with Creative Cloud, I saw that it was free to publish that, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's a good incentive to sort of move up if you're putting out apps and things like that."
Yeah, it's one of those things that got people really excited because it's you can publish an unlimited number of apps, and along with Muse, where you can actually host websites on Adobe. So it makes it, you don't have to, host your news sites on Adobe, but you can publish them as part of your Creative Cloud membership and maintain them there too. So, so those are some things that makes it really easy for people to do some different things. Because Muse was really, for people who can use InDesign, it uses a metaphor of working like a traditional designer thinks in a way without having to worry about the code inside of the site. Granted, if you're going to do a really elaborate, fancy site, you're going to be handing this off to the developer for that. But for some really beautiful, interactive sites that are, majority of the websites out there, Muse does a beautiful job on that. And it lets people kind of extend their skills a bit that, maybe have to have handed things off to a developer in the past.
Wonderful. Well, Terry, I think we're getting close to the end of our interview. And I want to say that you've done a great job, in my opinion, of coming in and answering a lot of the questions and concerns that many of our listeners have, at least to let them know that you're definitively working towards trying to deal with as many of their issues as is possible within the new structure that Adobe is trying to set up going forward. I noticed the other day that there was an active petition, I should say, in circulation that has, I think, over 30,000 signatures trying to just get you to end the whole CC subscription service altogether. So I definitely know that there's still a lot of people out there who have a lot of concerns regarding these changes. And while we have this outlet where we can speak with you at this point directly, are there any places where you would direct people to other people if they have other concerns or other questions that they could go and not necessarily ask you specifically, but to ask Adobe in general and voice their concerns or suggestions?
So you didn't want me to give out my direct Adobe email. So
I don't think you want to give out your direct Adobe email.
No, there are actually better places, and they are monitored. There's actually two, I think, that I would recommend. Where there's an ongoing conversation, or that the people, the powers that be, are watching and monitoring. And one's the Creative Cloud Team blog, and you could either just Google that. That's again this Creative Cloud Team blog, or it's blogs.adobe.com/Creative Cloud, Creative Cloud all one word, or on the Creative Cloud community forums. And again, you could just Google Adobe Creative Cloud Community Forum, and it'll take you there. The URL is forums.adobe.com/community/Creative Cloud. And again, Creative Cloud, all one word. But those are good places where there's either ongoing dialogue, or you can, when posts go up, you can respond, and people do respond. There are people there that will respond to your questions. And, when we get general questions and concerns over things, we try, if there's something we can do to address them, we will. Make plans for that. But it's a good place to if you got concerns and complaints, to get them out there, and know that they're being listened to and responded to.
And suggestions too, for sure. It's great to always bring up problems, but it's even better if you can bring up a problem and a potential solution to the problem.
Yeah, of course, we love that. But I know right now a lot of people, and there's and again, if you just look at some of the other discussions that are happening there, I know a lot of people don't want to dig around and take the time to do that. I mean, it's not they don't want to take the time; they don't have the time to dig through all these long forums. But again, don't think it isn't watched. Also, there's Facebook channels, Facebook and Twitter. They're just really very, very active on social channels. And there are social channels for Creative Cloud that you could certainly post or send in on a hashtag, questions in on a hashtag on Creative Cloud, and there will be people who are there to answer them. So there's two ways, a bit more traditional. It's all online, either the team blog or the community forums, or look at either the Facebook or Twitter channels for Creative Cloud. And I really think the blog and forums are the best place to go.
We can I was going to say we certainly can speak from experience to know that you guys are watching the blogs and forums, because we were completely shocked when you hit us up to chat about this. We were completely pleasantly surprised. It was great talking with you.
Well, a pleasure here. Like I said, we love the Illustrator community here especially I'm on the Illustrator team. Of course we do, but I know Photoshop's probably used even more than Illustrator by illustrators. And but it's a highly creative community that we do value a lot. And I check out your newsletter all the time just to look at cool stuff. So that's how I've stumbled over your podcast on this. So again, thank you very much for giving me a chance to chat. I hope I cleared up some of the stuff. And, if there's follow-up questions that come through, just shoot them over. I'll do my best to answer them.
That's great. I really appreciate you hopping on. And at first we were a little hesitant. We were like, oh, how's a marketing guy going to answer these questions? But I feel like you answer them open and honestly, and we really appreciate that.
Well, I mean, most of the answers are what they are. We don't do promise future plans at Adobe, but we are promising to add that value in Creative Cloud and in our apps that will keep people happy members and using our apps. So it's our business. We have to.
Great.
Understood.
Thank you.
I think that's a realistic expectation. It's after a certain point, no matter how much you might love your Betamax, versus your VCR, at some point or another, you have to switch over to DVD. Even though I still have a VCR in my house.
You haven't even moved up to Blu-ray yet? Come on.
There you go. See, so some of us there's plenty of your customer base that, yes, they're not going to do it until they have to do it. So I think what you laid out, Terry, as far as Adobe's going to be doing anything and everything it can to sweeten the pot, to make it so pretty that you just have to go over to the new model is definitely will work in your favor in the long run. And it's great to know that you again are listening to the concern that's coming from your users. As you said, the majority of your users. So it's good to know that people are being heard, and it's nice to see that when you go to the frequently asked questions pages, you got a lot of the questions and things that people had initially when this program came out, that there are now answers there for those questions that people had. So it's good to see that consistent evolution, but these people have to remember that they need to go back and keep checking and make sure that your voices are heard. That there are companies out there that are going to listen. You can't accommodate everything. You can't. That's not realistic. But it's good to know that you're going to do that. The company is going to do what it can to try to keep their customer base. That's always an encouraging situation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I know you guys are illustrators. I just wanted to do a little product pitch here because it's free. So I don't know how many of you have iPads, but we have some interesting drawing apps. Adobe Ideas is one. It's a vector-based drawing app for the iPad, and it's free. So if you wanted to have some inspiration on the go, it might be something fun for your audience to check out and play with. Some people are doing amazing stuff with it. Again, you have to have the talent to draw to be able to do really amazing stuff. But the illustrators who have picked it up are doing some cool stuff, and it's a freebie. So
cool.
Well, again, Terry, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast and giving us the opportunity to ask you these questions. It was eye opening. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's lovely chatting with you guys, and have a great weekend.
Thanks.
All right,
thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this podcast. Be sure to come by our blog to find articles, interviews, and resources to help fuel your education and growth. You can find us at onceuponasketch.com, Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube.